welcome to the Kickpoint Playbook webinar. I'm Dana DiTommaso, founder and lead instructor here at Kickpoint Playbook, and today I am joined by Ginny Marvin, the Ads Liaison at Google. I'm really excited that she was able to join us today, since we'll be talking about today Google Ads measurement, especially with regards to first-party data, is obviously a really hot topic right now. Please make sure to ask questions in the chat, as we'll definitely have time to cover those at the end. And if you have to drop out early, we'll be emailing everyone who registered a recording of today's session along with the slides that Ginny has presented. So I'm going to bring in Ginny and get things rolling. Hey, Ginny, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Dana. Really happy to be here and talking measurement.
Exciting. All right, so I'm going to bring in your slides and let's see, there we go. All right, take it away. I will jump in when just so people know, I've already seen these, but I have some questions as we go through for sure. And, as I mentioned as well, please make sure to ask questions in the chat. I will see them. I will make sure to ask them at the end of our conversation today. So take it away.
Great. All right. Thanks. And thanks everyone for joining. I'm going to focus largely on enhanced conversions today as we're talking about framing this measurement conversation, but we'll talk about some other things along the way as well, and obviously continue to ask questions. And any questions that I don't get to, we'll be sure to follow up with Dana and close the loop on anything outstanding. Without further ado, we're going to dive right in. We're going to quickly go through this agenda. Some of these things actually I'm not going to really focus on case studies, but those will come to you in the email. So let's dive in to this new world of measurement. And so I want to take a quick step back and frame this conversation. In this new world, we have a whole lot of considerations in terms of what's happening on the privacy front, what's happening with local and regional regulations, and what's happening with browsers and the way that signals are treated. So when we're thinking broadly about what a measurement plan for 2024 and beyond looks like, it's focusing a lot. We've been talking about this for many years now, but first-party data, as Dana mentioned, is absolutely critical for measurement foundation. And as we'll talk about also, it can then feed into helping your bid strategies as well for your campaigns. So when we look at rising user expectations, regulatory changes, and technology consumption is impacting our traditional data collection. And so this is, again, sort of thinking about your foundation and how it needs to evolve. And I do want to mention, kind of thinking about third-party cookies, obviously Chrome's approach is changing and is going to be now focused around user choice and opting in. But again, your strategies really shouldn't change based on that shift. Observable conversions will continue to decrease. And that in turn is really going to require investing in first-party data to increase reliance on both conversion modeling and comprehensive measurement reporting. So again, I just really want to stress that we're essentially in the same world we were in a month ago before Chrome announced this shift, and that first-party data is still really critical, whether it's user choice or the way that browsers are going to be handling these signals. Your first-party data is really going to continue to be a critical piece of your measurement plan.
Yeah, and if I can jump in quickly too, I just wanted to mention as well, because I think that people have a misunderstanding of what happens with regards to cookies. Because, in Safari, for example, yes, of course, we're talking about Chrome because Google, but lots of people use Safari and other browsers, and on those browsers, third-party cookies haven't been there for quite some time. So first-party data is certainly not just, I guess I don't need to do this now because Google's keeping third-party cookies. That's not the takeaway from this. The takeaway is you still need first-party data no matter what.
Yes, 100%. Absolutely. And yeah, and to your point, I mean, this environment has been shifting for many years now. And hopefully, if first-party data hasn't been an integral piece of your measurement plan, that leave today with sort of renewed vigor in working with your teams to make it really a foundational piece of this. Great. So not going to dive a ton into this, but it's again just really essential. First party data measurement, and really two pieces of this are durability. And when we talk about durability, we're talking about future proofed measurement. So when you hear us being a Google language talking about durable measurement or durability, that's really what we're talking about is future proof that is going to be able to evolve with shifts in whether it's privacy expectations, browser changes, regulatory shifts, that you want to have a plan in place that's going to be able to evolve, and comprehensiveness. So the higher quality of the data that you're able to feed in, the better your conversion modeling and automation will be more robust, and your measurement will be more comprehensive. So what does this mean? We lay out this plan. So you're going to want to have foundationally, your Google tag is so important. So your site-wide tagging, if you don't have that down, and then that's the first place to start. Second place is consent mode. This is particularly, of course, important if you have end users in Europe, UK, but this can also help boost up your measurement and then can boost in modeling as well. And then to improve your accuracy of conversion data, again, this is going to be where we dive into. We're going to focus a lot on enhanced conversions. And then lastly, GA4 optimization. Again, that is a product that was designed for durable, privacy-centric measurement. Okay. All right. So let's dive in. First, we'll talk a little bit about just the very basics of how enhanced conversions work. So at its core, it's a conversion tracking feature that enables more accurate measurement. And so for enhanced conversions for web is what we're going to be talking about first. We'll get to a little bit about enhanced conversions for leads later on. But enhanced conversions for web, it sends hashed first-party data, user-provided data from your website when a user converts on your website. And then that data is then used to match to your customer to Google accounts when your users are signed in and when they engage with one of your ads. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I have a question about that. So what if someone isn't signed into Google and we still provide hash PII? Does that data get discarded, or what happens there?
Yes. So it will get deleted, although sometimes it can still be used for invalid traffic detection and improved modeling. But for the most part, yes, it's not. We don't use it. And it's so that data is then matched against Google's hash user data. And if it's applicable, it's used for additional conversion reporting. So,
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So next we'll go into, so that conversion data can then be used for measurement, conversion modeling, and automated bid optimization when you have especially if you're using it in Google Ads or Google Analytics. We'll talk a little bit about the differences there. And then also if you have access to conversion lift studies, it can also be used in those as well. Okay, so now a little more technical. So we'll dive into what it actually looks like from the technical perspective. So it allows you, again, to send hashed first-party data, and then there's the matching process with your hash data. That can be emails, phone numbers, physical addresses. You can also supplement that with, again, this user signed in data comes together and then is matched to the ad click and conversions that can then be used for total conversion measurement and modeling, bidding performance, and incremental studies. Incrementality studies.
Question about this too, and I mean, you might get to this later on. What if someone refuses ads tracking but is okay with analytics tracking. Or, I mean, this doesn't happen as often, is not okay with analytics tracking, but is okay with ads tracking. I assume that like parts of this journey would be missed in that case.
Yeah. So if there's no signal to pass, then there's no matching that will happen. But again, that's sort of where the modeling comes in.
Right.
Yes. And when conversion modeling is available after you've met those thresholds, it is then able to be used for matching. But otherwise, no signals passed.
Makes sense.
Excellent.
Yeah. And let's see. So this is just a quick look at sort of some of the performance lifts you might be able to see from enhanced conversions. This is taken on an aggregate standpoint. This is also early data from 2021 when this is still in alpha. But we're seeing that the performance impact with more increased conversion rates, you're able to see, especially if you're using target CPA, incremental conversions of 3.5%. And on YouTube as well, it also will bring in conversion data from YouTube as well. And so,
do you know the industries for this data? Is it like e-com, non-e-com, a mix of everything?
yeah, this was a mix of everything. So not sector specific.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to dive into the deck when we send it. Dana will send an email and have more specifics on some of the case studies. But we have seen case studies across retail, travel, lead gen, or enhanced conversions performance. So we'll let you dive more into kind of the use cases and specific case studies in the deck when that gets sent around. So I want to talk a little bit about how your data is processed and protected, because obviously this is a valid concern and questions we get a lot. You have full control over which data you share with Google for matching, and any data that's collected for enhanced conversions is hashed on the client side before it's shared with Google. And then the hash data is securely sent to Google servers and encrypted via HTTPS. So Google never has any access to the specific first-party customer data in its raw format. And any hash data that was shared that can't be accessed via Google Ads by Googlers, by customers, and hash data actually this goes to your question earlier, Dana. So hashed data that doesn't match Google's data will be deleted. And so hopefully lost my tab. Okay. I want to go a little bit into enhanced conversions for leads because it is a bit different than just the enhanced conversions for web. It's essentially a hybrid approach. And so the basic format or methodologies, user will click on your ad, arrives to your site, and then when they fill out a form on your site, then that becomes a lead for your business. And your site will then send Google a piece of hash lead information, whatever you're collecting typically. That's going to be the email address that you specify. You'll store that lead information in your CRM. And then when that lead comes back to being a conversion, you can then send that gets matched back to the event and recorded as a conversion in Google Ads. So we'll take another look at what that looks like, an example.
Yeah, I was going to say too, I find that clients miss out on the end part of this. So if we can set up the first part. We're like, okay, so we're sending the data off to Google when someone fills out the form. But then the CRM getting back into ads, I feel like that's the part where people really stumble. And so if they just do the first part and not the second part, Google has some data to work with, but it only really works if you do both parts, right?
Yes, you want to close that loop. Yeah. So if we can take this example, this journey example. So your lead, and also thinking about your time window. So if your lead generates sales within 1 to 14 days, we recommend that you import the data directly, assuming that it meets all the best practices. And again, your website will send us a piece of hashed data, and then you'll send that back. In this example, we have, if you work backwards and looking at the lead to sale journey, we're looking for a stage. You want to look at the stage that's as close to your business results when you're sending that data back and optimized for, in this case, like the booked moves is what this this customer is going to want to optimize for rather than leads, because it's that much closer to that end completion. So again, think about where in that journey that you're going to be best able to measure and capture the closed loop. So hopefully that's helpful. But yes, you do want to close that loop. So I'm going to go switch back to enhanced conversions, the web flavor, and talk about a little bit about implementation and diagnostics. Again, want to underscore site-wide tagging. So important because that is your conversion source. So you can either use the Google tag or you can use Google Tag Manager. And then you want to have Google Ads, GA4, figure out what your ground truth is. You can also use Google Ads conversion tracking, and then customer data is submitted. You must have that available on the page, obviously.
So before you move on from this, I definitely have a question about that. Well, I have a couple questions about this. So I have a question and a complaint. All right, first one is the question. Google Tag and Google Tag Manager. I get why they're named what they're named, but the name is so similar. And for people listening who are like, what is Google Tag versus Google Tag Manager? Google Tag Manager is an external product that contains all sorts of tags. That's why Google Tag Manager has containers. So you can send like Facebook pixels and Google Ads pixels and everything else to your website. Google Tag is something that lives directly in Google, and it's where you can use one tag to send data off to GA4 and Google Ads, for example, at the same time. And you can use your Google Tag in Google Tag Manager, but you don't have to. And I find that terminology super confusing. So please tell me they're going to rename it or something, because I can't be the only one.
I'm sure you're not the only one. I completely empathize with the confusion. I don't have anything I can share at this point, but I will absolutely pass that feedback along. I get the confusion, but yes, you're right. So one is a product, sort of like a house for not just the Google tag, but any other tags that you're using for being able to easily implement and have a central receptacle for your tags. And yes, then the Google tag is the specific piece of code that goes on your site.
And you don't need to use the Google tag in Google Tag Manager. I think the Google tag is really intended if you're not using Google Tag Manager and you want to send data off to GA4 and Google Ads. That's the point of it. So if you are using Google Tag Manager, I typically don't recommend using the Google tags. It's better to set things up separately. But if you don't have Google Tag Manager, you don't have that know-how, then you can just use the Google tag and that's fine. But then my other question is related to the scanning of the site-wide tagging at the conversion source. Because as you know, there's been some scanners that have been added to Tag Manager and GA4 that are checking if your tag is on all pages and letting you know if all pages aren't tagged. And that scanner has gone a little haywire, and it will tell me that it sends this error, and it looks scary to clients if they go into Tag Manager or GA4 and it says, no, your pages are tagged, something is wrong. But it's trying to tag things like our WordPress admin pages, for example. And I feel like it's turned up a little bit too much right now. It needs to be dialed back. Is that something internally that the team is aware of as well? If you can speak to that.
Yeah, it's really good point. I am aware that's an issue. I will absolutely, again, though, pass that feedback on to the team. I believe they're aware as well. And it is that fine balance of making sure that folks are aware of there may be gaps and versus, but yeah, I can also understand why too. seeing alerts from a client perspective that you're not aware of would be alarming. So I will
They look very scary, the warning. It's like,
yes.
tagging isn't right. Well, calm down. It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great feedback. I'll absolutely pass that along to the team. I know
Thank
it's
you.
that it, yes. Like, no, can be
Mhm.
concerned. Here, I did want to just touch on a little bit about enhanced conversions in Google Ads and being also available in GA4. So enhanced conversions launched in Google Ads first, and enhanced conversions for web is now also fully available in GA4. So a few the considerations to think about. An advantage of implementing enhanced conversions in GA4 rather than only in Google Ads is that user provided data can be used for additional purposes such as demographics and interests and paid and organic measurement. So you get that the user provided data piece of it when you implement enhanced conversions in GA4. So if you're thinking about whether you should do it in one or both, some guidance. So if you're using Google Ads conversion actions, you should use Google Ads enhanced conversions. If you're using GA4 cross measurement, cross channel conversion measurement, you should also use Google Analytics enhanced conversions. So if you're doing both, you're using Google Ads and you're using cross channel conversion measurement in GA4, you can opt to set them both up in the same property. Couple of considerations though. You need to be aware of which one you're bidding on or bidding to, and including in the conversion counts in Google Ads so you don't end up double counting. Be sure your Google Ads conversion tracking setup only includes the appropriate conversions in that conversions column. In other words, you want to just make sure that you're not including the same action for both ads and GA4 in ads. Hopefully that's clear. If anyone has any questions about that, absolutely let me know.
Yeah. Well, actually, we can take a second to answer. People had questions about this specifically. So let's see. And FYI, I don't have access to LinkedIn comments today. It's not working for some reason. So I've been copying them in. Carolina said, I don't understand the technical setup of the second step where you send the CRM data back to Google. Do you have to set up something more in the CRMs? And so this is what we were talking about, where you do need to send CRM data back into Google Ads. It's not just getting data not just data from the form into Google Ads. We need to send the CRM that says that the person like bought the stuff back over into the CRM. So I think that, yes, you do. I wonder if that's maybe something as well, like with documentation. Like I feel like people don't realize there's that additional step that needs to be taken. Like just the first half is not enough. And there's lots of ways to do it too if people are feeling like technically it's difficult. Like we've set it up using Zapier. For example, like we have one client whose leads, they don't have a CRM, so their leads go to a spreadsheet. And in that spreadsheet, we have all the details of their leads and whatnot, includes the GCL ID. And then they mark a column, yes, this was a sale, no, this was not a sale. And then Zapier runs whenever they update the sheet and then sends that data off to Google Ads. So it can be super low tech like that. You don't have to use a CRM if it's not something you need or if you're a smaller organization. But I mean, if you have one, obviously try to get that data connection set up for Google Ads for sure.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I also will take the note to look at our documentation more closely and see if there's ways that we can improve that and make that clearer. Great.
And then Neil also had a comment about the scanner. So his scanner is picking up totally unrelated sites. Ours once tagged to liveNowLiveWell.com, which is not anything close to what they do. And I saw too in another client, it had the actual, not concern, but the actual something is horribly wrong warning, like the dark red one as opposed to the light red one. And it wanted us to set up our conversion linker to include their staging sites, their staging domains. And there's no way to stop that message from showing up without accepting the change. Even if I edit it afterwards, it still comes up and these domains aren't included. The world is going to end. So the scanner has gone a little extra.
Okay, I will absolutely take this feedback back to the team because this is helpful to know. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want this to turn into a Google Ads bug checking session, but this is for sure stuff that I know that people in the community are seeing.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. That's why I'm here to take this feedback back in. No, it's super helpful. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. We just have a little bit left here. So, taking a step back, wrap up some of what we've been talking about. So, your the tagging infrastructure can be, again, like we mentioned, Tag Manager, the Google Tag, and also or the API, and then implementation mode. I don't want to get too down a rabbit hole in this, but just so you're aware, there are three options for implementation. And then looking on the right side of the slide, the universe of where enhanced conversions can come into play in the products across Google. And now back into some of the more technical aspects. So when you're in Google Ads, again, the validation piece of this, measurement diagnostics, you can find in the new Google Ads UI. You find it under goals. And then on the conversion summary tab, you'll see diagnostics. There's a diagnostics tab on there that will show you a summary of any kind of issues or recommendations for active measurement products. You'll see also recommendations for products you may not, or features you may not have adopted yet. And then you'll be able to dive deeper. There may be recommendations that are specific to enhanced conversions or any alerts to help mitigate performance risk. So if you don't know where that is, again, it's going to go to goals and then the summary page, and then you'll see a diagnostics tab in the UI. That can be a helpful place to check. And then I just want to highlight this quickly. So if you're using SA360, this will be in the slide deck that Dana will be sending along. And for instructions, also in GA4 for setting up links to set up, implement user provided data. And just a quick note on user provided data. So it's recommended now only for web only GA4 customers. So you can stay tuned for updates for AppStream users. And I was mentioning to Dana before we started today that there has been a fix for BigQuery. So BigQuery exports now will contain your user ID for both user and event scope dimensions. So if you're running into issues there, that has been addressed.
Yeah, let me talk about that too in case people don't know the background on this. When the user-provided data beta first came out, it's a hard thing to say that 3 times fast. What was happening was that if you had the BigQuery export set up and you were sending things like user IDs off to BigQuery using this connector for GA4, the user IDs were disappearing, which is obviously not ideal because if you are obviously capturing user IDs and sending them off to BigQuery, that's important. That was something that was happening and we knew was happening. There was some conversation about the community, but I don't know if it was necessarily widely known. One of the things that I always recommend just generally is, and I'm also extra cautious when it comes to analytics, because one of my rules of analytics is you can't go back and fix it a lot of the times. If something gets messed up, it's just there. You can delete data out of GA4, but you don't want to delete that much data. So really, especially for things like user provided data, which is still in beta, have a second GA4, have it collect all the same stuff that your primary GA4 collects. You can even attach Google Ads to it if you want, just maybe not import any conversions, but then set up user-provided data there and then see if the data you're getting, say for BigQuery or wherever else you're taking a look at it, does this data look correct? Is it still matching up with what you see in the main GA4? And there's always going to be like minor differences with 2 GA4s even running with exactly the same configuration on the same website, even if they're both delivered through the same Google Tag Manager container, because the internet. Sometimes things don't get totally delivered. You'll see it on high volume sites. You'll see like a small variance of 0.5%. You might not see it so much on smaller sites. But just something to keep in mind is like having a test sandbox GA4 is always a good idea. I typically run with at least 3 GA4s at any one time. You have your production, which is, don't touch it. It's working the way it should. You have your sandbox where you can try stuff out. And then you have a third GA4 where any information that goes to a staging URL gets pushed over to that third GA4. And that's a nice way to keep your data super tidy. So actually, here's my question. Do you know when the user-provided data is going to be coming out of beta?
I don't have a timeline to share on that, so we'll stay tuned. It's been in beta since last December.
I mean,
The life of Google data is actually
not that bad. Like GA4 was in beta for a long time before it came out.
Yeah, and part of that is during that beta phase, there's kind of like feedback. That feedback loop is constantly happening, and fixes like the BigQuery fix gets addressed. But to your point about having multiple GA4 setups, I absolutely agree with that, and would listen to Dana on that. Dude, having just one.
As a testimonial, Jenny says, "Listen to Dana."
Yeah, I just say I just think it's a standard best practice to have places where you do your testing, and
it costs you nothing, but what does cost you is bad data. So always test stuff in another property before you put it to your main.
exactly, yeah. And sometimes you may have teams that want to look at other, either experiment differently or have a different kind of setup. And another great use case for having a different property, and you can label it as such. So that's absolutely encouraged. Well, let's see. And Dana, if we're running on time, you just let me know. We're running up.
We're good. We have a few questions still, but I think you still have a few minutes to go. So
okay,
we're good.
All right. One thing I just wanted to quickly note: conversion-based customer list. So this is an option after you're set up enhanced conversions. You can then also have the option to enable conversion-based customer lists. And then once you're opted into this, the feature essentially automatically creates audience segments using the same hash user provided data from enhanced conversions for each of your conversion goals where enhanced conversions is active. So if you're not aware of this, just something I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but just wanted to bring it to your attention. And this will be available in the email that Dana sends out afterwards to dive in a little bit deeper if you'd like. Okay. Wanted to highlight just some of the recent launches on enhanced conversions. So we're really focusing on 3 pillars: usability, tools and diagnostics, and improved privacy. And so we've tried to make enhanced conversions more accessible and easier to adopt, simplifying the implementation steps and setups. Again, feedback like we get today is super helpful to be able to bring back to teams. If there are places where there are gaps in our documentation or any sort of implementations, you can please send that feedback. It is taken to heart. Tools and diagnostics. So try to help more self-help diagnostic tools for implementation status alerts, what we noted in the diagnostics tab in Google Ads. And then again, obviously ensuring that enhanced conversions is privacy safe and privacy centric. A quick note for consent mode, if you are using it. So conversion modeling, I just wanted to note that conversion modeling in ads is available when you implemented consent mode V2 and have a daily ad click threshold of 700 ad clicks over a 7-day period per country and domain grouping. And then once you've met that criteria, when you're using consent mode, the models enter the training period. And then you can expect to gradually start to see modeled conversions flow into your conversion reporting. And you can see that in model uplift by domain and country level in the conversion diagnostics tab. That's another place where that diagnostic tab can come in handy.
And this is separate from the GA4 modeling, because that is the GA4 modeling is 1,000 people have to say yes and 1,000 people have to say no to cookies in 7 days of a 28 period. And so this is that you have to have at least 700 clicks across a 7-day period, not like 100 clicks a day, but just like 700 in total across that 7 days. Okay.
Yep. Great. Good point. And just again, I wanted to highlight some additional resources. Again, this will be provided in the deck. So hopefully these will be a good sort of go-to set of links for you to dig in more and hopefully help with your implementation. And that's it.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so we do have a couple more questions from folks. And again, if you do have more questions or just general, feedback, because Ginny's here. She said she wants to hear from us. So if you have questions in the chat, I mean, I find too a lot of people are like, this period of documentation's wrong. There's a lot of documentation. And I can't even imagine how many people you must have on your team to keep up with it. But even then, it's got to be impossible. And I imagine, too, there's probably a lot of content debt, technical debt with regards to the switch over from Universal Analytics to GA4, where there's lots of some people send me stuff and I'm like, yeah, that hasn't been updated yet. And, we send feedback and whatnot. But I imagine you probably got a big backlog of stuff that still needs to be updated.
Yeah, and like to your point, it is just an ongoing process, and sometimes we just miss something on our end. So if you see something, say something. Really, truly, will not be offended in any way. And I'm on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and you can highlight things. There's also feedback mechanism in the help center as well to send. If you catch things that aren't quite right or are outdated, that's also a great avenue.
Okay. All right. So one of the questions that was asked earlier on, apart from first-party data, how to get your hands on second and third-party data and where to get it from if you're not getting it directly. Do you have is this something that, Google Ads deals with regards to second and third-party data? I mean, obviously there are, if you're thinking about, say, the display network, for example, there is third-party cookies there, but can you speak to that at all?
I guess I would take it back to the genesis of the question. It sounds like maybe they're having trouble finding avenues for collecting 1P data. So not to evade the question, but that's where I would go back to is second and third party data. It is still going to have the same weaknesses. And so if there's something that is limiting your first party data collection, think more about like other ways that you can engage your users. And this is another thing that I really want to emphasize is when you are asking users for their data, what is your value exchange, right? You need to be giving them something and making it worth their while. And so I think this probably is going to be, this is a time for all brands, all companies, all businesses of any size to be thinking about what that value exchange is with your customers, what you want that relationship to look like, and investing in those kinds of programs. So I don't mean to dismiss the question, but I really do want to bring it back to focus on how you can build out a more robust first party data strategy.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, next question we have left is from Cindy. So we talked about conversions quite a bit. Are they just Google Ads conversions or including GA4 key events? I mean, it's interesting because I think there's still some confusion about key events versus conversions because something has to be a key event before it can be a conversion. And technically, do conversions, they live in Google Ads, but then they're pushed back into GA4 in that advertising section, right? Conversions don't live in GA4 itself.
Yes. So this is a really good question and a really important part. And so, Danny, you're spot on. So the key events and conversions update was made to eliminate that challenge of the discrepancy between what a conversion is in GA4 versus what a conversion is in Google Ads. So now that back end is the same on both fronts when we're talking about conversions. So that, yes, that your Google Ads conversions are reported as conversions in the advertising reporting section in GA4. And those are also key events. But so your key events are any sort of event action that you want to be measuring across your site or your apps, right? And then your conversions are think about that those are your ads, campaigns, actions that you are measuring and optimizing towards.
And I find too, it's the conversions and key events, the key event you promoted to a conversion, let's say it's a form fill. You might have 20 key events of form fills. And then if you look in the advertising section, you might see 26.2, and that's because of data-driven attribution. If you change that model to something like last click again, like maybe the numbers will match up, but they might not because it is using a slightly different way of measuring it. And there's a blog post on our website actually where I go over key events and conversions, and in that blog post, and we'll make sure to add a link to that in the email that we send out as well in case people haven't read it. But I have an actual attribution scenario that I wrote out when this was first announced, and I was so lucky, and this is thanks to Ginny, to be able to email this over to someone on the GA4 team and say, please double check that my attribution scenario is correct. And it was. So if you're like, what's going to count in a key event or conversion, definitely check out that post, and we'll make sure to include a link to that in the resources as well. Okay, so we have 2 more questions before we finish off here. This one from Andre. Where do we set Google tags? If we don't add a Google Tag Manager, is it via backend of websites? Yes, via the backend of the website. Although you can put a Google tag in Google Tag Manager. It's just like tags all the way down, I guess. But most of the time, that's really intended to put directly on the website because you're not using Google Tag Manager, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right. And then our very last question from Brittany, who's on our team. This is honestly a pain point, I imagine, for us and anybody who works agency side, internal as well, like privacy policies. I feel like no one wants to say this is what your privacy policy has to contain because of the privacy implications. But it would be so great to say this is the specific things that you need to make sure you say in your privacy policy for your website based on the features that you've selected in Google, in GA4, or in Google Ads, for example.
Noted. I will pass that along. Obviously, this is something I think there are probably things we can do to make this clear when you're using this feature. There are, and actually, I'll find some of I know there are some help documents in the Help Center about policies and things you need to be adhering to. So I'll share those links, Dana, and then if you think they're helpful, you can pass them along. I think also, though, this certainly is an area where you want your own legal team to be vetting and making sure that your language is fully covering you. Also lean on your own legal teams as well.
I mean, assuming you have one, I find this is a problem, especially for like smaller businesses. And like that business where it's not quite like a small business, like a dog kennel or something, right? That's a very small business. They're just going to use a privacy policy template. They're probably not going to get sued. But when you start getting into that mid-range and you're big enough that people are paying attention to you, but you're not so big that you can like afford actual detailed privacy advice, or you might have a general counsel as opposed to someone specialized in privacy laws, I feel like that's the spot where some additional documentation would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, so I'll pass along those Help Center documents, and then happy to continue having that conversation if that's enough, if it's adequate, if there's more that we could do that would make sense for us to do on our side.
Awesome. Okay. I think that's it for all the questions. Thank you, everyone, so much for attending today. Thank you, Ginny, for being here and answering all these questions. And I really appreciate how open you are with regards to talking to us about various Google Ads stuff and how helpful you are for the community. If people don't know, definitely please follow Ginny on social media. What would you say is like the best place to send things to you? Is it LinkedIn? Is that where you hang out the most? Twitter? I don't know if you're on there so much anymore. I'm not really so much.
Yeah, I am still on Twitter. I will say it's because it's still the place I can just quickly get things out and know that most people who are on there will see me, but I also understand that there's a need. So I'm very active on LinkedIn as well. And I'm just Ginny Marvin there. And I'm at Ads Liaison on Twitter. I'm also on Threads at Ads Liaison. So if you're, I know I am there. It is still a very small piece of that social puzzle, but if you're there and want to engage, you can find me there at Ads Liaison.
Thank you so much. Okay, so next webinar is going to be September 17th with Bernard Wong, who's founder of ClearScope. He's going to be talking to us about SEO content and information gain, which is a really interesting topic, especially with regards to AI content, which is everybody's favorite topic these days. So you can sign up for that right now on the Kickpoint Playbook LinkedIn page. And please watch your email. As Ginny mentioned, we will be sending out a PDF of all the slides that she went through today and a replay of this webinar as well. So you'll be able to watch this as much as you'd like to your heart's content. And again, thank you so much, Ginny, for your time today. And thank you for everyone for attending and asking all those great questions. We really appreciate the time you're able to devote to talking to us today.
Thank you. This was really fun. Dana, thanks. Appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. See everyone back here on September 17th.